navigating love with a strong personality or narcissistic partner.
That's right, Tina Marie. Guess what? We have a guest in the studio today.
Yes, we have a special guest.
Yes, we do. It's Miss Carla Lito.
And we'll get right into today's topic right after this. Cue the music, Jason.
Welcome to Loving Beyond the I Do podcast. This power couple is building stronger marriages one day at a time. Talking about real issues on love, relationships, and marriage longevity. Let's break down the barriers and engage in healthy conversation with your hosts, Jason and Tina Marie. Take a seat and buckle up because things are about to get real.
Hey, welcome to the show. Welcome to another episode of Loving Beyond the I Do podcast. We are your hosts, Jason and Tina Marie.
That's me.
And we're here to inspire and empower individuals with actionable strategies and insights for developing meaningful and fulfilling relationships using universal principles, effective communication, and mindset shifts.
That's right. We use the Manifest Method framework to help individuals create and develop the type of relationship they want. And you may ask, what is the Manifest Method? Well, we are glad that you asked. It helps you get your relationship back from being on cruise control. So, Jason, tell us, what is the Manifest Method framework? Using the Manifest framework, mindset, awareness, nurture, intention, focus, empower, strengthen, and transform.
All right.
All right. So before we get into the episode, we just want to know, do you have your copy of Manifest a Joy-Filled Relationship?
And you should.
And if you don't, what are you waiting for? Go to manifestajoyfilledrelationship.com to get your copy.
Start transforming yourself and your relationship today. All right. So now I need you to go out and grab your copy. All right. So like I said, we have a guest in the studio today. Yay!
Yay! You have a special guest.
Yeah. So let me tell you a little bit about Miss Carla Lito. Carla Lito is a licensed marriage and family therapist with 2 master's degrees in psychology and a successful private practice in Los Angeles, California, who helps many people improve their personal relationships and transform their lives. Using her keen manipulation radar and egomaniac detector ability, she is known as the Tell It Like It Is therapist who cuts right through the bullshit to help her stuck client get unstuck. Carla is happily married with more cats than kids. In her downtime, she enjoys practicing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, watching stand-up comedy, and eating pizza. Carla, welcome to the show.
A woman after my own heart. Love eating pizza. Welcome, Carla.
Thank
so
you.
is there anything that we missed that you might want to add?
Yes.
Oh, I think you guys covered it pretty well. Yes.
So you said you have more cats than kids?
Yes. I have 3 cats and I have a daughter and a stepdaughter. So
Okay. Wonderful.
Yep.
Wonderful. 2 girls. How do you find that in your home? That's your husband is outnumbered.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, there's only 1 girl in the home because she's 17 and my stepdaughter's an adult. She's 30. So
Okay. Wonderful.
everybody gets along. It's great.
That's
Well, that's the most important thing. Everyone getting along.
Yes.
Yeah.
Knowing how to perfectly blend a blended family.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the first question. So when we're dealing with our partner being like that, what is one of the ways that people can, 1, recognize it, and 2, deal with narcissistic behavior from their partner in dealing with and resolving conflict?
Yeah. So when you said someone like that, you mean someone with narcissistic traits or someone you think might be narcissistic.
Exactly. First, we have to be able to recognize what it is and maybe even give it a name, because sometimes we may not know, right, what it is. And because there are certain personality traits. And then if they fit they fit this quota or this, what would you call it? These traits, then
a personality. I mean, in the diagnostic manual, it's a personality disorder. So it's like the idea that these personality traits are at such a high level that it's creating an impairment in the person's life. So, I mean, like, what are these traits and what does narcissism mean and what does it look like? I define it as self-absorbed, pride-protecting, empathy lacking, greed-driven individuals who hurt other people in order to protect their fragile egos and maintain their status as superior, special, or perfect. Trying to cover a lot in a few lines there.
I think you jammed it all together there.
Yeah.
And so those are the traits, but how do they kind of show up, right? Because sometimes we can have the words, but give us what does that embody? What does that look like in a person?
What does that look like in a person? Like, you want to know the telltale signs.
Yep.
And so, those are the character traits. But I would say the first dead giveaway that you are interacting with a narcissist once you start to get close, because look, some people, kind of like to brag and show off, or maybe they can be a little bossy. That doesn't mean they're a narcissist or that they have a personality disorder. That's their personality style, of course. But, the chief characteristic of narcissism is an inability to self-reflect and connect to their shame. And so what that means is they can't acknowledge their own character flaws and deficiencies. And so what happens in a relationship or in communication when you're dealing with somebody like that is at the first sign of conflict or disagreement, they're not going to be able to take in your perspective or your experience or anybody else's. If it challenges their worldview or their perception of themselves as amazing or perfect and unflawed, they're just not going to allow that in. They're going to deflect. And then there comes all of the manipulation tactics to avoid shame. And that is, the projection and seeing that you're doing what they do, or gaslighting and all these things. So if you can't have an initial conversation with someone like, hey, look, that comment hurt my feelings, or, when you did X, Y, and Z, and have it be okay that you brought it up and be able to resolve it together. And where both people feel heard and understood, then that's a sign that you might be dealing with someone who has these issues.
So can one of the signs, so when you're talking about this, let's just say the person did something wrong, or what everyone else would view as behavior that was not considerate of someone else, or they actually did something that, or they maybe hurt someone else's feelings or brought harm in some kind of way, or did something that was probably, shouldn't have been done. And you bring it to them. So it's a sign that they just initially from the top just won't accept it. It's like they'll project immediately. Well, XYZ, is that kind of like one of the signs?
Yeah. And something that they'll do even further to that, or worse than that, is they'll somehow make you feel bad for even bringing it up. So sometimes people have a hard time taking constructive criticism, and they'll say, well, I only did that because this and that. And I don't think that means they're a narcissist. They might have trouble with feedback. They might have an ego, sure. But a narcissist is going to really put you back in your place and shame you for even daring to bring up something about them, like even going there with them. They're going to make you feel bad for saying it.
They're going to point out all the ways that it was your fault for even bringing it up. I did this because you said this, or you acted this way. This is all your fault, not mine.
Right. Yeah. For example. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So when we're talking about conflict, how would an individual who may have a partner like that, and you can answer it in both ways, not only a partner, but we deal with relationship and everything is relational, right?
Right.
Your daughter, your son, your not just your spouse or your intimate partner,
but your boss,
your coworker,
friend.
How would someone deal with conflict? Because really because conflict is going to be the number one thing, because if that person can't receive it, they're immediately going to give you, some type of projection where you're going to ultimately get upset because they're not, one, willing to accept it or hear it. So how do individuals navigate that space and dealing with conflict with a person that has those characteristics or that trait?
It's very difficult. It's very challenging. This is why narcissistic relationships with narcissistic people can be very toxic and abusive, is because you might have to accept that you don't have a voice in that relationship. And that is hurtful to the person and looks like abuse. Right. So as soon as something like that happens, when someone's not willing to listen to you and turns it back around on you, you definitely don't want to get pulled into an argument with that person. I think a lot of the mistakes that people make is they keep insisting on getting their point of view across with someone who's committed to not hearing that.
Exactly.
And it's not effective. It doesn't go anywhere. And so at that point, when you realize you're dealing with someone like that, you have to step back and just accept that they see things how they see things, and maintain your position. Like if they're gaslighting you and saying, well, that just didn't happen, which is something they'll do. They'll say, I never said that. It hurt me when I didn't do that.
Right.
You say, well, we remember things very differently, or we see things very differently. And you might have to accept that you're not going to get this narcissistic person to listen to you if they're not listening, to see what you're saying, to understand how you feel, to recognize your experience. You explain it the best you can. If they gaslight you, if they belittle you for bringing it up, I recommend disengaging and noting that this is a person who's incapable of that kind of interaction. This is a person who doesn't want to know about my experience. And then, you ought to decide, well, what that means for you and what kind of a relationship you can continue to have. And if you have a choice, sometimes with family, you don't have that much of a choice. With a partner, maybe you do. Even in families, you can choose how much of a relationship you're going to have. So maybe you can't be that close to this person, or you can't get your needs met with this person, but you can be cordial with them on family barbecues or whatever. But you might have to let go of getting the narcissist to see things from your perspective when they don't want to see another perspective. They're committed to their own.
Okay. Okay. So really it's up to you to kind of be the bigger person. And so, I hate that idea of there's a dysfunctional family member and now we have to all be mature while this person can just act out and be crazy. And right? Nobody wants that. But it's not really that idea. It's more the idea that realistically, you can't control how that person behaves, and you can't control what they see and what they understand. And so when I set a boundary, and the narcissist or this dysfunctional person doesn't understand it or accept it, I can't understand it for them. Right.
And I can't make them understand it. So then, when you set a boundary, you present them with a choice to accept your boundary or not. Right. And with a functional, with a healthy, well-adjusted person who wants to have a good relationship with you, normally they accept your boundary and your relationship improves because now you understand each other's needs and feelings better, and you understand how to operate together. And that's the whole reason for a boundary is we know how we can coexist together.
Right.
But the narcissist doesn't care about that. They don't care about how you can exist. They're only interested in how they can
and that's what I'm kind of concerned with, because so when they don't care about your boundaries, and we set up boundaries really to protect ourselves. So when you set up these boundaries, or you said don't get into an argument with them, just take a step back, it's sort of like, are you really having a relationship, or are you just really coexisting?
That was my question. It seems like you can't have a relationship because you
Yeah.
can't have an open conversation.
I mean, like
That's
how
the bottom line. This is the thing that's so sad for families and people to learn, is that like you really can't have a relationship or a healthy relationship with someone who's really a narcissist. You can't. And so, I mean, that's a good point. Like, what happens after you set the boundary if they don't accept your boundary? What happens then? Well, then now you have a set of choices. And your choices are, how much do you want to continue to invest in a person or expose yourself to a person who disrespects you? That's your choice now.
Right.
And so if it's a family member, you know, you might have to like limit your engagement or limit your contact, but you can't just cut that person out of your life. Or maybe you can. It depends on the relationship and your family dynamics. If it's a partner, you know, you want to have a real hard think about, should I stay in a relationship that is this disrespectful to me and neglects my needs, right? So after someone, you know, you give someone the choice to accept your boundary. If they don't, your choice then is, okay, so what do I do about that? Like, how do I have a relationship with this person if I have one at all? You can't make them accept the boundary. You just decide what you're going to continue to do with them or without them from that point on out.
I don't know. That seems a little like sad kind of a way.
That's how I'm looking at it. Yeah.
It's like you really. So what are some of the strategies? Do you have, you know, so tell us about your book and then we can go into strategies. So you do have a book. So tell us a little bit about your book.
So my book, Outsmarting Egomaniacs, How to Respond to Narcissists and Master Manipulators, it's, you know, so the first part really sort of like helps you understand what narcissism is on the spectrum. And like what we were saying earlier, some people, you know, might have some traits or a big ego, but they don't have a personality disorder, but just kind of what that spectrum is. And manipulation tactics, like how are they manipulating you? What manipulation tactics are they using on you? And then I kind of break it down into archetypes, like different types of manipulators. And I do this, you know, it sounds mean. Like I'm not trying to put people in boxes or label them. I do this so that people reading the book can recognize their experience more easily, because the way that I wrote this book was really just to make it digestible for everyone and easy to read for everyone without getting too clinical and theoretical, but just here's what's happening to you and here's what you can do about it. With tips and tools of how to deal with each type of manipulator. And then the last part of the book is really about you. It's how to build your own self-awareness, learn about your family dynamics so that you can see your relational patterns, see what's attracting you to people like this, how to break away from people like this, and how to communicate effectively, how to set boundaries effectively, and how to build your confidence and make meaningful, healthy connections so that you can live a happy life without all of that.
So I'm going to let you get into the first question because I just thought of something else. So the first question was, do you have in your book or just in general, like strategies? What are the most successful strategies that you may have for individuals to use if they find themselves in, you know, with a partner like that or a best friend or even, you know, someone else?
Employer?
Right. So with each sort of type, the know your enemy section, I have the egomaniac, the drama queen, the control freak, different types. And a lot of them have a little script of things those types of people might say, you know, where the drama queen is all about playing the victim. And so what do you do when they keep, you know, when they keep making themselves the victim without taking responsibility? How do you handle that? And so I'll give kind of lines and one-liners, but, you know, the premise on all of them is not to try to, not to let the situation escalate, not to get pulled into the content where they try to take you down an avenue, pull you into the ring, and, you know.
That's so much easier said than done.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, it's funny because I was going to say that. Theory and everything works out fine.
Yeah.
Everything works out perfect in theory.
When
but
you're
I'm
talking
telling
about
you,
it.
when I'm dealing with this individual, and it's always something with this individual.
And you get sucked in so quickly.
And you're just trying to be helpful, right? You come into a person's age, you're always there, but they don't reciprocate that, right? And you just, after a while, you understand that and you love them for who they are. but you caught in this loop and you don't even understand what it is.
Right.
So that's why I said in life it shows up different because we're not trained to analyze it like that and understand it.
Right.
So we're just being the best friends that we can be. We're being the best mate that we can be. But we find ourselves in this loop and then we lose ourselves. And now we're stuck in this thing called relationship that we don't even, we're not getting anything from it. So
the problem there is that you're communicating with them as if they are not a dysfunctional person and as if they actually care about what you're thinking and feeling and trying to keep convincing them to look at you and to be seen by them. And that's not working. And that's where you get stuck. And so one of the things that I talk about a lot is that first you're setting the boundary and then you have that's the easy part actually, is to just say what you need or say what you will or won't do. The hard part then is to alleviate yourself of the guilt for setting it in the first place. And secondly, because especially when you haven't been setting boundaries, it's because you're part of this dynamic of taking care of them instead of yourself.
Exactly.
So then now you're learning to set boundaries. Great. So you set it, but now you feel so guilty, like, oh, they're going to think I'm a meanie,
Right.
Right. And then and so there's the guilt, but then also you're still caring about what they think of you and your boundary and what's in their head. And that might be okay when we're talking about
regular people,
a higher functioning relationship, a healthy relationship where there is an exchange, there is a back and forth, there is reciprocity. And, you're saying, oh, Jason, I didn't know you felt that way. And you're like, well, oh, Tina, but now I understand that you feel that. And that's happening. But when that's not happening with them, you set your boundary and then you have to detach from their process. You have to let go of whatever's going on in those 6 inches between their two ears. That is not your concern. If they think you're mean, you have to just sit. And then it's like, this is how I feel. And I see that you're having a hard time accepting it. But it is what it is. And let them call you whatever they're going to call you, or
because that's coming right.
Narcissists love to go on Facebook and be like, and talk about how, you got to let them do all that stuff and know that if you set a boundary, it's because you've thought about it and you have conviction about you've connected to your value. You've decided this is something that matters to me. These are my values or these are my needs or whatever. And you're saying it. And so it's okay because you've thought about it and then you've voiced it. And so if they don't like it, you don't need them to like it. And I think that's the hardest part for people is letting go of how the other person takes it. And if you can get to that place of, I know I'm a good person. I'm not doing anything to hurt you or mess with you because I have this boundary, and let go of how they handle your boundary.
I think in relationships, I know in relationships, period, it's hard for people to set boundaries,
sure,
right? Because usually we go into relationships and somewhere along the lines, there are no boundaries, right? We don't set them. And so I know Jason and I, we definitely make sure we tell couples to set boundaries. And it's so hard because, like you said, the first thing they think is that this person's going to think I'm mean and they're not going to understand me. And so, even with, as you said, you're trying to rationalize with someone who doesn't rationalize, right? They don't really consider your feelings, or you don't even know what they're thinking.
Yeah, boundaries are a great way to even find out, to test the potential of a relationship and find out what it's capable of. Because when you think about it, setting a boundary gives someone an opportunity to meet your needs and take care of you the way you want to be taken care of. You're letting them know. And so if you set a boundary and someone respects that and honors that, now you're closer. You understand each other better. You know how to take care of each other and coexist together. If you don't ever say your boundary, they don't know what you need and what you're asking for. And if you do say your boundary and they don't accept your boundary or respect your boundary or take care of you in that way, now you know that, well, this is a person that I have needs in front of and I make them known and they don't care. That's information about the dynamic that you should take in. It doesn't make you bad for setting your boundary. It means this is something I need and that person can't give it to me. So what does that mean? Then you need to make a decision about this connection. Even if you think that person's awesome, if they can't meet your needs, they can be an awesome person, but that's not the right connection for you.
Right. They're not awesome for you.
Right.
You have a question? 'Cause I was gonna go.
I was just going to say that shows up differently because, well, not differently. You set a boundary, and then they don't honor that boundary, but you let it slide.
Right.
And
But
then you set another boundary, and then you let it slide. And after a while, the other person on the receiving end will be like, I don't have to respect any of this person's boundaries. They keep saying this, but they don't accept it when I don't honor it. So, hey, she going to get what I give her.
Well, that's right. As soon as when you set a boundary, it's important that you maintain it, because no one takes you seriously if you don't stick to what you say and stick to your boundary. So you can't, you have to be prepared to follow through on what you say your boundary is.
And so that brings me to the question, when you're telling someone to set boundaries, should it be a boundary of what they will and won't accept, or should those boundaries be expressed to that person? Because how can you express it to a person if, one, they're never really trying to listen? So how do you set a boundary? How should they be expressed? Is it something that you say, okay, the next time this happens, I'm not going to do that, and then I let them know? Or should I let them know ahead of time to try to eliminate that situation?
Yeah, I mean, narcissists don't handle well being told what to do. So it's not going to go over well if you come in and it's like, you can't be doing, if you, right, they're not going to. In one of the chapters, when I talk about communication, I talk about ways to frame things that make it an effective communication strategy that works really well on people who are not narcissistic. And if they are, may or may not.
Yeah.
May or may not.
Well, at least
but
you have data.
I mean, you want to talk about your boundary in terms of yourself. It's not about the other person.
Right. Exactly.
You can't do blah, blah, or I'm gone. Like, it has to be more like, I need the kind of relationship that is XYZ, or I won't accept, lying, whatever. Like, these are things that are important to me. It's about you. Or, I'm not okay with XYZ. Mm-hmm. And then you decide what you're prepared to do. You might say that or not. You might say, well, I need to be in a relationship that is full of honesty and disclosure. And if I ever find out you're lying, I'm gonna be gone. Then you really have to be, you have to be gone.
You have to be gone, right? You don't.
You really have to leave.
Or even being disrespected, right?
Yeah.
Let's just say, because like you said, they like name calling, right? You said they like to call names and go. So what if one of your boundaries is, they start to do this and say, right. I don't like when you disrespect me, or you do this, you do that. And so now you're expressing it. But so
great. That's a great, so an example.
But what's the repercussion? What comes after that, right? What is it that they have to say after that?
Right. So good. Like a good concrete example. So in a conversation, if you're getting belittled and, name called, you stop right there. If in this conversation you're going to talk to me that way, we're going to have to stop. I'm not going to participate in a conversation with name calling. We're going to have to stop right here, and we'll revisit it later when we're both calm, or when we're feeling better, or when we've cleared our heads. You end it right there. Anyone calls it disrespects you, you end it right there. They don't have access to you after they've just disrespected you. You don't participate in a conversation where you're being disrespected. You end it right there. And they understand that they don't get to have access to you. They don't get to talk to you. They don't get to have you there while they're disrespecting you. And then, this is where it gets tricky, where you really do have to kind of learn what a person's capable of, because, people don't leave the first time they're disrespected. Right. And the reason for that is because they try to set boundaries or put things in place to show someone how you intend to be treated. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, you might give someone another chance. I mean, some people, the first time they call you a certain thing, they'll never see you again. Other people, it's, look, you can't talk to me that way. Maybe you're giving them some grace because they had a rough childhood, where people in their family talked this way, and they're learning a new way. And okay, that's great. And you give them some more chances, but you let them know right away. You put the phone down, you walk out of the room, You walk out of the restaurant, it's over. You know, it's like, I'm not doing this with you. And then, you know, you try again.
Really care?
Oh, they don't see what they've done wrong. But this is an opportunity for you to assert yourself and your needs and take care of yourself. Now, if you are someone who is used to taking care of yourself, it's going to be pretty quick and easy to make that decision.
Right.
Yep.
How long you want to hang in there with someone who acts like this. People who are used to neglecting themselves and taking care of other people and maybe getting walked over a bit.
Yeah, I was going to
take longer, you know, and maybe this is someone that's difficult to walk away from. So you try harder and put more boundaries in place for a longer period of time before you realize this person's just not capable of taking in another perspective or respecting someone's boundaries. So it takes longer, but yeah, you might still try to have more conversations where you help them learn. Then you maybe in some cases, you know, if they're not a full-blown narcissist, you might see like, oh, they're getting better. And you love the person enough to hang in there and like try to improve the relationship while they realize like, hey, you know what? I don't like the way I lose my cool. I don't like that part of me. I want to get better. And they work on it and they recognize that they do that. And then it relents over time, you know, and maybe you're willing to put up with a little bit of it because they're improving it. And it's a learning curve, right? It's not going to just go away in one night.
Right.
Absolutely.
But so it really depends, but you have to set that boundary immediately or else people think that they can. I mean, you give people permission to treat you. People treat you the way you allow them to treat you.
That's exactly what we
And
teach.
so what do you think, because I know sometimes what happens in relationships is that people just shut down.
I want to say one thing. You know, like you were talking about the restaurant, you know, getting up and leaving out or whatever. It takes courage because you know that if you get up, this could be it. You could be ending the relationship at this point. Or, you know, so you could end it. So you have to, one, get to a point, especially if you are a people pleaser.
Yes.
You have to get to the point, build up enough courage to actually decide, I'm not going to be disrespected. This is the boundary, and I'm not going to take it anymore, and I'm going to walk out.
Yeah. I mean, look, you might walk out of the restaurant on like a first date. Like, who is this guy?
Oh, well, yeah, that's easy because you don't have
if it's your boyfriend, maybe you sit there and go, listen, you can't talk to me this way. And you see if they register right, I'm out of control. Okay. No, I didn't mean to call you that. I'm sorry, you know. And then, then you can hang around in the restaurant together and work it out, right? No.
Right. You can go ahead and finish the date.
Yeah.
Do you ever see that narcissists are nice in the beginning, very loving, caring, you know, say in the dating phase?
Or just,
It's just nice. I mean, normal. Yeah. I'll say normal. Right.
And are they normally very sweet and kind?
Right.
And nice?
And then, you know, they get into the relationship and into the marriage, and then they kind of flip a switch.
Yes.
That's normal.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah, they're usually very charming at first. They know just how to turn on the charm.
Yeah.
They know how to behave in a way to be attractive. And a lot of times they know what you want, what you're looking for, and they can be that. And then usually when the flip switches, it's once they're comfortable with you, once they know they have you, once they know you're invested, once you're not going anywhere. So sometimes, unfortunately, in like domestic abuse situations, it's once she's pregnant or once they're married or once they move in or what, you know, when there's more intimacy and more connection, that's when they feel safe to let it seep out. But, in the beginning, they know just kind of what
the
to
right
say.
Things to do. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I was going to say, so when you're talking about walking out or not indulging in that type of conflict or conversation or arguing, what do you think about people who just may shut down? Because what we find is that people shut down, right? They they don't talk. So they don't walk away, even though they say, okay, I'm not going to engage. They kind of just, you know, shut down, and they're not really listening to the narcissistic person, but they're still there. They're still in their presence. They're just kind of just being their punching bag, right? But they're just sitting there. So what do you think about just this? Because people believe that, okay, if I become silent, then I'm not engaging. But you're still allowing that person to just, you're not really setting a boundary in a way. So what do you think about just if somebody, instead of, speaking or walking out or shutting the conversation out and leaving, they're just sitting there silent?
I think it depends. I think it really depends because, and it depends on, I would say what's most important is how is that person, the shut down person, feeling? And what are you absorbing? And if you're just taking abuse, no. If you're someone who's very skilled at putting up that invisible shield and just kind of letting them, do their thing while you separate yourself from it, and you're good at that detachment, and that, you might do that for a while, but sometimes you're in a situation where there isn't really anything you do. Like if it's a boss, that might be something you do because you need your job and you don't care if your boss, if you like your boss or your boss likes you, you just have to get through your work day maybe. Right. And that's what you do in that situation if you're capable of it. If it's taking a toll on you psychologically, it's not good to hang in there and do that for too long. Some people are very good at just kind of putting up that shield and not participating and fanning the flames, but you have to be really honest with yourself about what you're allowing yourself to take in and absorb. And I wouldn't recommend doing too much of that and keeping yourself in a setting that is causing psychological harm to yourself.
Yeah. I was just going to say, you can sit there and take it and say that you have the wall up, but and you're just taking it all in. And then you look up and you come home. Say you're doing this in a work environment. You come home and you act those feelings out in the home against the people that you love.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't just absorb it. And then where does that go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, in dealing with that, is there a process, right? Because it's really up to the individual who has this disorder, right? Is there anything that someone can do to maybe shed light that their behavior, their tendencies aren't kind of normal, and maybe, is there anywhere, right? Because you want.
That's the question of hope. There's the hope right there. Yeah. I know, listen, yeah. I mean, if they're really a narcissist, if they have narcissistic personality disorder, there is nothing you can say or do, anyone can say or do.
Wow. Okay.
That is going to break through that shame deflecting barrier. They're built to keep out any information that touches shame. That's the way that they survive. They thrive on this like fantasy or narrative that they're, their flawless self-image, right? Like they can't let that reality in. So there's no way really to get through. People will leave them over and over. They'll lose friends and partners and jobs, and they never see how they're the common denominator, even if the same thing keeps happening.
Wow, they'll never see it, huh? So in your studies, have you found that this is something that you're born with, or something that maybe triggers you, or you pick up, or because of an experience, you turn into it? So what has your studies, maybe, excuse me, brought in that area?
Yeah. So there's always with nature versus nurture with, are you born with it or does your environment produce it?
Exactly.
It has to be both. And I think you are first born with a genetic personality, and narcissists are born with a personality that is genetically predisposed to narcissistic traits. That has to come first. And then the environment, the parenting, the type of, the kind of environment you're raised in will then shape that personality even more. It becomes a disorder when those personality traits are so severe that it's disruptive. So there's no way to tell that someone's going to have a personality disorder or narcissistic personality disorder as they're growing up, and until they're a fully formed adult with a fully formed prefrontal cortex. in their head, right? Like that's 21 to 25.
Right.
Certainly we see some bratty kids and teenagers who act out, and there's no way to know if that's just normal developmental stages, because all children go through egocentric phases, and all teens are grandiose and stubborn and all these things. It's like you can't, we don't know that they're narcissists, but usually they grow out of it. You see a toddler throwing, pounding its fist on the ground because he wants an ice cream cone. That's normal. When a 30-year-old does that, that's not normal, right? Because you hope they'll grow out of it.
Right.
So what happens is in your environment, if you are predisposed to these traits, and then your environment positively reinforces the growth of those traits, like the self-entitlement and the greed and all those things, then the personality traits will grow to the point of a disorder. And so that's why parenting in your environment is so important, because yes, you're born with this, but then how bad or how worse or how much better it gets really depends on how you're raised. And so parenting does play a big role in how it then gets shaped from that personality. So, you'll see parents raising 2, 3, or 4 kids. How come one of them's a narcissist and the other one's not at all? Or why aren't they all narcissists if it's just parenting? Well, because there has to be a certain genetic personality first. So, when you say parents who spoil their kids are breeding narcissists, yes, but they have to be narcissistic or egocentric first in their personality in order for that to really take hold.
And as I'm listening to you, because you're like, it's their environment and it's parenting. But so when you said parents who spoil their kids, for example, right? How do you know what's too much, what's enough, because like where's the balance? Where's okay, I want my children to enjoy life and have, the best at life, whatever that may be that I can give them. Yeah. But at what point is it, well, wait a minute, excessive. Hey, I see something a little different. So, because as a parent,
it's not material things. It's not material things. You can give them everything under the sun. It's the way that you teach them to navigate life and how you help them cope with disappointment and failure and distress. And it's not shielding them from the realities of life. Like, oh no, you're special, you're perfect, you're amazing, you did nothing wrong. You have to let them face consequences. You have to let them face disappointment, and you teach them how, and you teach them to self-soothe through these things. When parents try to prevent their kids from ever feeling any discomfort or disappointment ever, how are they going to learn to cope with that? That's what breeds self-entitlement. So it's love and generosity with discipline and firm boundaries together, not one or the other. So, listen, parenting's tough and there's no way to do it. Yeah. And it doesn't mean if you spoil your kids a little bit, you have, little burgeoning narcissists. Not necessarily. But I would say if you've got, a kid who has that personality of like, I need to be the best and is maybe bullying other kids, or maybe selfish, maybe bossy, maybe some of those traits, and then you feed into it, then there's a chance that you might procure this. You're feeding a self-entitlement monster, and telling them, yes, this is how you want to go about life. So at the same time, someone might not have those traits at all. And you can be like the worst, most permissive, spoiling parents with no guidelines, no discipline, but they don't have those personality traits. And so they just don't become narcissists,
Because I'm thinking, as you're saying, right, as a parent, you feed it, and then they become into it. But then I'm thinking, as it evolves, right, now you become the adult, and now you're in the relationship, you're in the marriage. Yeah. So do they usually look for partners that continue to feed that, right, that entitlement?
Absolutely.
I'm just really trying to get people to see.
Oh, yes. So, that's the thing, is that narcissists are always looking for caretakers and empaths and people pleasers and people who are easy to manipulate in that way because they want to make you feel good. And so, yes, absolutely. They're used to getting their way. They're used to invading boundaries or ignoring boundaries. And so they like people who aren't good with boundaries. And narcissists aren't the only people who suck at boundaries. Codependents and caretakers and empaths and people pleasers who are the nicest people in the world are horrible with boundaries too.
Yeah, right,
in a super way, in a way that narcissists benefit from. And that's who they're looking for. That's who they're looking for. Yeah.
That's almost like the perfect storm then, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Wow. You put those two together.
Yeah. And it's just like when we're navigating that space and in intimate relationships, like how do you survive as being you, right? How does a person who may say, okay, my mate checks all the boxes and they may have this, and I know that they can be empathetic and they, every now and again, I see the shield come down and they can relate. How do they keep their individuality and still nurture the relationship? Because maybe they really love this person. They want to be in a relationship with them, or I don't know. They're trying to
make it work.
Yeah, navigate it. Whereas maybe some of, like you said, they've learned how to just pull back, right? Hey, I'm not engaging. I'm going to go into another room, or I know how to work around them. Is that a healthy relationship? Is that something that people should do?
I mean, I think that a healthy relationship requires both people doing the work and not one person orbiting around somebody else.
Okay.
So if that person isn't actively changing, like looking at their behavior and changing and taking steps to change, then it's not a healthy relationship. It's you doing the work and staying, and them and they're not. And that's just you feeding the relationship and not getting your own needs met. And so, yeah. And so, I mean, that doesn't, going in the other room, half the time because the other person can't control himself. It's saying it's okay that you can't control yourself. I'll just be over here.
Right. And when you get back.
Right.
So, and a lot of that.
You put your own self in a timeout.
And I would say a lot of that could be like you recognize that you're walking on eggshells. Like you're afraid to say things. You're afraid to do things. That could be a very, like a red flag. We talk about red flags, how people just, there's a red flag. I'm just going to walk over it. But this is a very big red flag, right?
I think people have to see what you'll allow and what you won't allow, whether they're a narcissist or not. Narcissists are less likely to change. But I think if someone is crossing the line and you've told them and it's not getting better, at a certain point, you have to make a decision. Is this relationship more important than me? Like there's no relationship that's more important than your own self. And so you have to make a decision to value yourself, which might mean walking away or even just taking steps to walk away, or saying that it's not an ultimatum, but it's like, this is what's actually happening now because of how I feel about this relationship and its ability to improve. And so I'm planning to leave. And sometimes people make those adjustments when they feel you slipping away, narcissistic or not. You might have to make that decision for yourself that like, I can't, this isn't changing, so I can't be in this. And then maybe that person can actually take those steps. They might still not take those steps, but sometimes that's what people need. Because here's the thing. When we talk about conditioning, as soon as, if you can keep saying, I don't like this behavior and this is not okay and you're disrespecting me, but you're staying, you're still there. And so the other person's like, well, she doesn't like it, but there she still is. So I guess I can keep doing it. They don't mind having the fight. You don't like having the fight, but they'll have the fight because they get to do what they're doing and you're still there. The moment you leave or you have one foot out the door is the moment that they actually understand that they can't get away with the behavior because you're gone. And that gives them an opportunity to think about whether or not they can make those changes or not. Some people will still never change.
True.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Some people need that, oh no, that person's gone to make the change.
Mm-hmm.
So you might want to make that decision if it's not getting better instead of just hiding in the other room,
Yeah.
Leave. So I did, you know what, when you're talking about the parent giving into the child, feeding into that little monster to, to be.
She didn't say it was a monster.
I know, to be.
The monster to be, yeah.
Right. So when that person says it's a boy and he gets married, it's a boy. The new wife has two people that they need to deal with now. They have to deal with their spouse and they have to deal with their mother-in-law. Because if you started this from, him being a child, now you have two people, right, that's caring about him. Well, you have him that you can't deal with any issues or anything. And then you have the parent that feels the same way. You can't hurt Johnny. You can't do this. You have to please him this way. You have to do this. So that's a very tough relationship to be in because you have to, navigate both of them, your mother-in-law and your husband.
When you marry someone like that, you decided to marry a mama's boy. You decided that. And so you have to decide, is this the kind of life I want? He's like that before you married him.
Absolutely.
Now you have it even worse. So if you're going to marry someone who has those kinds of parents, it doesn't matter if that person sets boundaries with their own parents, but if they're enabled by those parents,
absolutely,
and they get off on this enmeshed relationship, and the parents are, there's this dynamic that you just can't break through. You want to think about that before you get, because now that you're married and you're the wife, that doesn't mean like, okay, now I'm in competition with mama. Let's see who's he going to choose now, mama or wife? You don't want that battle.
You don't want that struggle.
You won't win that battle because they have that established relationship. And the only way you can find out if you're mama's boy or, mama's boy husband to be is going to ever change and not continue that dynamic with his parents, with his mom, is to not agree to marry him unless that's resolved. Again, it's the boundary. I don't want a partnership where there's a third party making decisions for us. I don't want a relationship with my mother-in-law in the middle. I don't want a marriage where my husband looks to his mom to make decisions instead of us together as a united front, as the head of the household and our unit, right? Like that is important to me. If I can't have that with you, this isn't going to work. That's your boundary. So then it's up to him to figure that out, to decide if he's going to make those changes. And he might just be like, this is how it is with me and Ma. And if you don't like it, you can bounce. There's the door. And then you have to be ready to walk out that door because he's just told you, I'm not going to change that. Yeah, this is what you're signing. This is what you're signing up for. Or he's going to be like, you're the, woman of my dreams. And I see, okay, maybe this is not healthy and you're not going to stick around for this. So let's see, maybe I'll work on this with you. Then you can. But if he's not going to work on it, they've been doing this their whole lives. Because you're now you're the wife, you're not going to get anywhere in that struggle.
That's a very good point, because so many women, like you said, they think that once we get married,
we're gonna change.
All that's gonna change. I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna
be
set
number
the ground
one.
right.
Yes.
And then you find yourself in this battle that you didn't need to take if you just had paid attention. Like when we're talking about the red flags, like a person is not going to change who they are just because they get married.
Sure.
It so many
worse. Things. Yeah, I was going to say, everything just really multiplies.
Yeah, it magnifies the problem.
Absolutely.
Because he has you now. He has you now. So it's like, now you really have to deal with me and mama because you're in this. You said yes.
Said yes to all of this. This is what you signed up for.
Or as you stated earlier, they will find a way to keep you, right? Either they're pregnant, either they need you, either you've made a promise to, hey, let's move out, that you've moved in with them. Like they pretty much have you in a space where you're like, okay, well, maybe it'll get better, where you're not willing to leave so easily, as opposed to when you guys have nothing that's connecting you so much. Well,
Right.
I've enjoyed the conversation.
I
How
have
about
too. Yeah, I've learned a lot about mama's boys. I'm going to look at them differently.
you? All right. So, Carla, can you tell everyone where, everything about you, where they can find you, what services, what you have, your book, whatever you want to let the audience know about you?
Yes. My therapy website is carlalitotherapy.com. And from there, you can also find my author page about my book, carlalitotherapy.com/book. There it is. This book is available everywhere. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at Barnes & Noble or any bookstore. Sometimes it's not on the shelf. You might have to ask and they'll bring it in. But wherever you buy your books, it should be available online. So.
All right. That's beautiful.
Right. Thank you.
How long did it take you to write the book?
I had it in my head for a very, very, very long time. But then from the moment I sat down to write it and finish it, about a year.
And so what took you into this particular topic, this particular area?
Well, the whole time that I've been a therapist, I've pretty much specialized already in narcissistic abuse recovery. I was exposed to people like this very early on in my life, personally. And so naturally I gravitated towards that in graduate school and in my clinical training. And I found that I was able to help people who are struggling in toxic relationships really well because I understood it. And so it just became my area of expertise. And after helping so many clients, I decided I'd write a book and help more people.
Wonderful.
That's wonderful.
And so as you said, you were exposed to it. So your therapy started from you actually helping couples recover from it, right? Okay.
Right. So people come to see me when they are struggling in a very difficult relationship, or they're thinking about breaking up with their partner because they're realizing, I think he might be, or he or she might be a narcissist. Or they come to me after they broke up and they're feeling really beat down, and that their self-esteem and their sense of self is not intact, and they want to kind of get back to themselves. So at different stages of having endured these kinds of relationships, people will come to me. Sometimes it's a family member. Often it's a partner. And so there's a lot of sort of making sense of the relationship and then also building themselves back up.
Okay. Wonderful. All right, Jason, why don't you tell everyone where they can find us at?
Okay. All right. You can find us. You can connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, and LinkedIn at Legendary Relationship. You can also listen to our podcast, Loving Beyond the I Do, wherever you get your podcasts delivered. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart Podcasts, or YouTube. Or go to our website, legendaryrelationship.com, and click on podcasts. All right. So, Carla, it has been a pleasure.
Yes.
I've learned a lot.
Great conversation. Thank you for being our guest. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on the show. It was my pleasure.
So tell everyone one more time where they can connect with you.
carlalitotherapy.com.
All right. Wonderful.
All right. That is wonderful.
Yes, I think that wraps up another episode. You ready?
Yeah, I think so. Don't go anywhere, Carla. Stay right there.
All right. So as always, we're in it to win it.
Till next week, guys. Peace.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Lovin' Beyond the I Do podcast. Head over to iTunes to subscribe and leave a review. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Legendary Relationship, or visit our website at legendaryrelationship.com. Till next time, remember to make every day count.